Have you ever met the connector? Well, he ponders, he helps, he creates, he writes, he speaks. He basically connects people and brings them together. I speak about Paul Solano of PS and All Marketing Group. At psandallmarketinggroup.com, you will receive an assembled group of Paul's contacts and connections that cross into many sectors of life. Please contact Paul Solano at 617-240-4130 or psandallmarketinggroup@gmail.com if you are in the market for a wide array of services. Again, please contact the connector, Paul Solano, at 617-240-4130 or psandallmarketinggroup@gmail.com with any questions. And now, here's Paul Solano, the host of Paul Ponders.
Welcome to #Paul Ponders. I've really enjoyed bringing you fun, informed, intriguing, and pondering podcasts. Many thanks to #PodPro Entertainment. Today's collaborating sponsor, Scott Albertson of #Project142.org, Riverworks Credit Union, NMLS number 410564, and Remax Renaissance Realty of Reading. Thanks for listening, rating, reviewing, and subscribing. Let #Paul Ponders begin. Greetings, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. This is another exciting PodPro Entertainment PodPro podcast, and we have a lot of content reels that go out based on these podcasts that we're doing, and this is on the video. The video aspect says that I have my shirt for Northeastern Fence and Supply Corporation on, and they have fences for the kids, dogs, and ugly neighbors. So they're a proud sponsor of my WATD 95.9 FM 12 o'clock segment on the radio. But today I have a very special friend who is our guest, and his name is Mr. George Shapiro. And Jordan, I want to welcome you.
Nice to be here, Paul. This is a first for us to do something like this. We had a lot of different exciting things we've done over our lifetime, but this is the first podcast, so this is very nice.
Absolutely. It's the first time for everything. And Jordan, I've known you for many, many years, over 30, 35 years or so. And just to introduce our listeners in Paul Ponders land to you, you're a graduate of Boston University with a BA from BU and your law degree from BU in 1966. And you are a senior partner in the law firm of the Shapiro Legal Group, correct?
That is me. So far, you're doing very well. I'm a young lawyer, and so I'm looking forward to hopefully still continuing to practice the way I have been. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just remember that old lawyers never die. They just lose their appeal.
That's true, and I'm not going to give you a story about I have 100 lawyer jokes, but I don't think you want to spend the rest of my time telling lawyer jokes. I can tell you my favorite lawyer joke is the difference between a lawyer and an onion. Nobody cries when they cut up a lawyer.
I love it. I love it. Well, Jordan, we could go on and on about your illustrious career as a lawyer, but let's focus in first and foremost on your ability to be an author. Okay. Please tell our listeners about your work as an author.
I can give you the short version. Is in 1981, I started writing these wonderful volumes of law books about creditors' rights and bankruptcy. And so now they're up to over 4,000 pages. It's law books for lawyers only. If you wanted to buy my law books, it would cost you about $600 to acquire the 2-volume set. It's published by Westlaw, which is the world's largest law book publishing company. And the books really tell really lawyers how to practice law in civil business and creditors' rights and bankruptcy. And it's, again, a book for lawyers. The regular consumer wouldn't probably understand what I'm talking about. And as a result of writing these law books, my wife says, writing these law books and $3 will get me a Starbucks. And so that's what's good about writing law books. But every once in a while, I get in front of a judge will say, Mr. Shapiro, I was reading your law book yesterday, and what do you mean by this? Or what do you mean by that? And so it is kind of a nice little fringe benefit that I get a little bit of publicity, and every once in a while, when a judge asks me a particular question, I'll say, well, as the authority on that subject on page 27 of my law books, I said this and that and the other thing. Sometimes that gets me in trouble, though, when other lawyers quote me against me in a courtroom. I had that once where the lawyer said, he's saying this today, and what he wrote in his law books is that. And so that was a little difficult for me to untangle that so that the court could understand what was the right decision to arrive at, which ended up being in my favor, by the way, but that's another story for another day. So writing these law books have been fun. I have to do updates every year. It forces me to be alert and learn what the new rules and the new laws and new strategies are. And so it's really wonderful for me to force me to keep educating myself and still practicing law very busy.
That is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And I believe when we recently had breakfast, you were telling me that you had a recent update that just came out over the past
Well,
few months.
not exactly. What it is I submitted the new proofs for the latest update to our publisher, and what they do is it takes them about 3 months to send out the hardbound law books and to insert all of our updates into the Westlaw search sites for lawyers who don't buy the hardbound books but go on the website to read what we wrote. So there's two opportunities for lawyers to learn the law from our law books, and that is they obtain the books either by buying them or by going online to read what we wrote. And so that's a easy search. It's much easier if you're searching for a couple of words about a particular issue that you might have. You can search the website of Westlaw. If you're a member, again, that's very expensive for lawyers to use Westlaw for the search, but it saves a lot of time and money.
Well, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. I'm sorry I misunderstood that. Now, Jordan, you've been very involved through the years of practicing with the local county bar associations. Tell us about your experiences with Middlesex County Bar Association.
Well, in those days when I was the president of the Middlesex County Bar, and let me just tell you a little bit my attitude about life and nonprofits and charitable work is it's very important for lawyers to do that. I'm involved with many, many organizations that are generally nonprofits, and I try to help them, and I do services for them very frequently without charge or without billing, and I do learn, and I do find that it's very important that lawyers that attend these meetings of organizations that don't have lawyers, the lawyers will be able to help the organization to avoid making mistakes that could get them in trouble. And so very frequently I'm involved. As you know, I've been the board attorney for the Chamber of Commerce for over 20 years. I was the president in 1997 for the Chamber of Commerce. I've been very active at my Masonic Lodge. I've been the past master of my Masonic Lodge. I was actually the judge advocate for the Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts, which meant if you were a bad Mason, I was the one who would throw you out of the fraternity, which kind of a challenge and fun. And we had different kind of very, very complex cases that people did not want to give up their Masonic membership because it's like a second religion for many people who are very involved with Masonry, and that's all that they follow. But again, Middlesex County Bar was a very nice honor that I was elected by all the members. I had previously been selected by a famous name in Malden, the former mayor, John Donnelly, who was a dear long friend of mine, and then he became a city solicitor in the city law department like like I did, and also I'll talk to you about that. But my membership in the Middlesex County Bar was really one of my favorite years of my life, where I was able to lead. I think we had about 1,200 lawyers in the Bar Association, and I did lots of different educational seminars. John appointed me about 5 years before I became the president to create educational seminars monthly for lawyers, and it was free. And then at one point, I realized that we were losing so much money, I needed to charge $5 so that it would cover some of the copy costs and the mailing. In those days, the computer was not as easy to send out emails to people, so we had to send letters with postage stamps and invitations describing what the meeting was going to be. But I had a very, very successful year. I had a lot of wonderful judges as speakers. I had a lot of lawyers as speakers on all kinds of subjects. I'm not particularly a lawyer who does criminal cases. Some people think it's a crime to give me the case, so I don't do those kind of cases. The other kind of cases I don't do is divorces, because I can't stand to see two adults fighting when neither one wants the kids. But those are just some humor, Paul. That's not all that funny, I guess. But in any event, so I've been very involved with these nonprofit organizations, and so I was very pleased to become a master of my Masonic Lodge, and then, as I say, working for the Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts, where I think there's 150,000 Masons in Massachusetts. That was another great honor for me. And I, again, the Kiwanis Club, I just came from a Kiwanis meeting at the great Pearl Street Restaurant, a place you're very familiar with. And we had I had the greatest fish dinner I've ever had in my life. It was fantastic. My wife had a fantastic chicken Parmesan dinner, and somebody else was raving about your steak tips, Paul. So I don't want to talk about your restaurant. I'll talk about me, I guess. That's what you'd rather me do. But it was a terrific time in any event. And
Thank you
so
for those kind words.
and it's so important, I say, for lawyers to be involved with nonprofits. 20 years of my life I spent as the city solicitor in Malden. I was doing trials of every kind of a case in the world. Actually, I've given several speeches over my lifetime about my 20 years as the lawyer for the city, because we had unbelievable challenges in those days. And I'm not going to really talk about some of those things that I learned as a result of being the lawyer for the city, but some of the famous names, we had people who were throwing cars into the water, and I had to fire those people. We had a financial crisis in those days in the mid-'80s, and I had to fire half the police department and fire departments, and they were not happy about that. I was worried. Negotiating for unions is kind of a fun job. It was kind of challenging, though, because my joke would be I didn't like to negotiate with the fire department because I was afraid they'd burn down my house. I was afraid to negotiate with the police department because I was afraid they'd beat up my kids. The best union to negotiate with, Paul, was the librarians, because the worst they would do is revoke my library card.
I love it. I love it. Well, I remember way back when, BITD, as my daughters would say, back in the day when I was serving on the Malden Planning Board, there were a lot of various issues in front of us, and you represented the planning board in the city of Malden so well.
And those are lots and lots of litigation I learned how to do. I really knew very little about municipal law. A particular city official once met me while I was coaching my kids' baseball team and said, "Jordan, how'd you like to be in the Malden Law Department?" And I said, "No." And he said, "No, you only have to come in a few days a week and do a couple of trials." He said, "I heard you're a very good trial lawyer, and our lawyer for the city at that time was losing a lot. So I'd like you to be the trial lawyer for the city." And I said, "Well, I'll try it for a while, see if I like it." And then I came in and I learned a lot of municipal law. And then I learned that there was an organization called the State Municipal Lawyers Association. And so I was going there. I was going there with several lawyers all around. I was the driver, and I would pick up the lawyer for the city of Everett, the lawyer for the city of Melrose, and the lawyer for the city of Somerville. The lawyer for the city of Somerville became a judge. And so I would drive all of them to monthly meetings, and after a while I got to know everybody there. And for some reason they said, "Jordan, why don't you become on the executive board, and before I knew it, I was the president of the State City Solicitors Association. And I had a wonderful time meeting all the city lawyers. There's 356 cities and towns, all have some kind of a lawyer, either a private lawyer or an outside counsel. And so I learned a lot of municipal law, and I learned a lot about zoning. I learned a lot about accidents of every kind. Every once in a while, the fire department would drive into somebody's house, or the police department would run somebody over and kill them, or they try to be accused of beating somebody up. And so I learned how to do all of those kinds of trials, in addition to the zoning and the Board of Appeals cases and just the general finances. And again, hiring and firing of employees. And so I'd be going to the appeals court. I've been doing jury trials, tons and tons of jury trials. I was blessed with a wonderful law department, and so we were winning a lot. And so it was almost, I used to jokingly send the city council, who was my appointing authority in those days. Now the mayor is the appointing authority of the city law department, but in those days I would be writing to the city council, we won another one, and here's what we did and how we did it. So no, we were very blessed. I've had some very nice organizations that I've been involved with all my life, and as I say, I like to encourage lawyers to be involved with those organizations so that they can make sure they don't make mistakes.
Without a doubt. Now, earlier when I started this podcast with you, I talked about you being a graduate of Boston University, both undergrad and law school. But of course, it all started at Malden High School, and you and I were um, on the committee for the Malden High Alumni Association in selecting the recipients of the Alumni Hall of Fame. So a couple of years ago, you received a phone call, basically letting you know from my dear friend Ellie Cushing that you were not going to be on the committee. And the reason was because we
Yeah,
just
she
decided.
said, I don't mean to interrupt you. She said, you're not be on the committee. And I said, why not? What did I do wrong?
Uh-huh. So anyways, while you had received a few nominations to be a member of the Malden High School Alumni Association Hall of Fame, so you are a distinguished alumnus from the class of 1960, correct?
Correct. That makes me
Absolutely. It made
old is now 20. Oh, I used to think old was 50 years old and 60 years old and 70 years old. Now I think old is 20 years more than me, whatever it is. So that's how I
absolutely.
face that.
Without a doubt, and we've worked on so many different fundraisers together through the years, but one of the fun times was the longest running fundraiser in Malden that did not honor anyone. It was the Malden Public Library Triple Threat Trivia, and you have the nickname as the Maestro.
And that was some of our best times and best years ever, Paul, wasn't it? And you can't forget those times. It was just unbelievable how you would be the master of ceremonies and would drive people crazy and find the daylights out of them. And they loved every second, and they loved you every second. Not romantically, of course, but they loved you every second for how you were doing things. And I was the piano player. And so I
Yes, you
was
were.
blessed when I was young. When I was very young, I started to learn to play the piano, and I took lessons. I actually went to Berkeley for a year, so I gave pretty good, and I started to play the piano to sweat myself. When I got to be 21, 22 years old, I was able to get into bars and lounges, and so my amazing education was I worked my way through law school. I would tell people I would work my way through law school by playing the piano in every striptease hall and barroom in Boston. And that's how I really got a fantastic education. You have no idea what I learned working in those places, but it was just an exciting time in my life. And doing the Malden Library trivia nights were just so much fun. And we raised a lot of money for all good causes, good purposes. And it was very satisfying. It was a great night. We'd have 400 people out there listening, and I'd have to name that tune in one note or two notes or three notes. It was just a lot of fun, and people loved every second. And we had a wonderful group of judges that would judge the tough questions that were asked. And sometimes people would seek that the other various of the tables were cheating because they'd bring in some guy from some TV show or some genius who won trivia contests and things like that in order to get their name on the front page of the various newspapers that were advertising the success of the event. But that was sad to lose those things as account of COVID and whatever other reasons. But that was a wonderful event. I kind of am not playing. The only thing I'm playing the piano for these days is I play Happy Birthday to You every month for the chamber people who are members who are who have a birthday that month. And then the other piano playing I just did was God Bless America at Kiwanis meetings every month. So I'm still dabbling, not playing an awful lot. Every once in a while, I'll go to a place. Like, I can tell you a quick story, is I went to a wedding recently in Italy, and while waiting for the event to begin, I saw a piano in the bar room, and I said, "Do you mind if I play a tune?" I sat down and I played a tune. They wouldn't let me stop. I went on for like a half hour playing for the bartenders. I'm playing pretty well. People now do listen to me play every once in a while. I get satisfaction in doing it. I play a lot of fun songs, and I have some humorous songs that I play too, but in any event, so it's still, piano playing is a wonderful ability to have. Everybody should teach their children how to play something musical. Very important to have music in their lives. And I would do speaking every once in a while. The Kiwanis had an event that we would run every month or two. We would go to different schools, different members, and I was the only one on the Kiwanis club. I would bring my keyboard, and I would play songs for the second and third graders. They would listen, and I would tell them how important it is for them to learn to play music, and I would lead them in sing-alongs for children. Mary Had a Little Lamb, The Farmer in the Dell, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all those kind of things, and they would really welcome me, and so I was kind of a hot item that people wanted me to be that speaker, and the teachers wanted me to be the speaker when the Kiwanis Club was doing those charitable things to teach children about what business people did in the community. So it's a lot of fun I've had in my life. I enjoyed it. And again, I jokingly say I was born in Malden Hospital, and I never improved myself. I'm still here, but I do still live in Malden. They had a residency requirement for the 20 years, and then my best friends moved next door to me. So my wife and I don't want to leave. We're enjoying Malden and still staying in Malden. And I recently moved my law practice to a new location in Malden. So everything is good.
It really is. Well, Jordan, as I said at the top, we could go on for hours and hours with your illustrious career. But how do our listeners in Paul Ponder's land reach out to you if they need any legal services or a guest speaker or a piano player?
Yeah, all of the above. That's right. I do a
Yes.
lot of speaking for bar associations. You're right. I do speaking occasionally. No, it's the Shapiro Legal Group. I'm Jordan Shapiro. Our office is now at 350 Main Street in Malden on the third floor. That's the great big tall Bank of America building across from the Chase Bank. And my email is don't laugh. I'm a 7 letters in a row. JSLAWMA, still at AOL.com. Telephone number 781-324-5200. And I work day and nights, weekends and holidays. I tell people I'm trying to slow down from 70 hours a week to 50 hours a week, but I haven't quite got there yet. But I'm available day and night, weekends and holidays. People can always reach me. And I only do civil business, every kind of civil business. Not that I am discouraging people who have issues with bankruptcy. I always tell people bankruptcy is a wonderful thing. Everybody should do it at least once, and you should contact a lawyer. Thank God that nobody pays their bills is my joke, and so that's my little fun lines about bankruptcy. But we do a lot of real estate closing. We do a lot of business law, business corporations, estate planning. We even do, and so there's a lot of different civil kinds of business that we do in my law practice. I don't do any criminal law, as I say, because it's a crime to give me a case sometimes. Some people think.
I love it. Well, Jordan Shapiro, I want to thank you for being on Paul Ponders and look forward to catching up with you real soon, my friend.
My pleasure. I enjoyed every minute, Paul, and we'll definitely do it again.
Absolutely. And that's a hashtag indeed. I trust that you have enjoyed hashtag Paul Ponders. Again, my name is Paul Solano of PS&All Marketing Group, and I may be reached via email at paul@paulponders.com to do some more pondering. Many thanks to my longtime collaborative friend and associate, Chalonzo Amos of PodPro Entertainment, in bringing you our fun, exciting, and informative podcast. You rock, Techie Chalonzo. With PS&All Marketing Group, I created a side gig to connect you and get things done. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me at paul@paulponders.com with any questions. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Paul Ponders. Follow us on Twitter at Paul Ponders Pod. Follow us on Instagram at Paul Ponders Podcast. Thank you again for listening to Hashtag Paul Ponders, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our website, paulponders.com, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by PodPro Entertainment, Hashtag Paul Ponders lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. Hashtag the new radio. Until we meet again, my friend, stay well. Hashtag indeed.